Este es el análisis arquitectónico en profundidad de Embracing Digital This Week, donde vamos más allá de los titulares para examinar los patrones arquitectónicos que están dando forma a la transformación digital. Este episodio se centra en el retraso del modelo operativo en el dominio estratégico y en cómo está generando tensiones en la inteligencia artificial y la ciberseguridad. Soy el Dr. Darren. Entremos en el análisis. Technology is moving faster than the decisions that contain it. And in that gap, the operating model falls behind. That is where momentum is lost. You see it when AI starts supporting decisions, yet no one defines decision rights. You see it when a cybersecurity issue stays open 124 days after discovery. You see it when connectivity shifts from convenience to continuity during a major sports event. You might think this is just a tooling issue. It is not. This is not a capability failure. It is a decision failure. Your team feels it in slow approvals, questionable metrics, and controls that are already outdated. In that environment, leadership focus has to shift. Redesign governance, clarify ownership, set the rules of trust. That is how transformation keeps moving. Bajo esa presión, el patrón se vuelve claro. Esta semana, la IA avanzó en apoyo a decisiones y en experiencia de usuario en el mundial. Mientras tanto, la ciberseguridad siguió arrastrando una corrección abierta por 124 días. Y la conectividad quedó tratada como base de continuidad en un evento global. Al mismo tiempo, la transformación digital volvió a mostrar el mismo desfase. La tecnología entra primero. El modelo operativo llega después. El efecto empresarial es directo. La decisión se vuelve más lenta. La remediación se alarga. La confianza baja. Y el cambio pierde ritmo. Cada nueva capacidad abre más revisión, más aprobación y más incertidumbre. Desde una mirada de arquitectura, esto mueve los derechos de decisión. El negocio consume señales nuevas, pero la autoridad para actuar, revertir y validar sigue repartida en reglas viejas. Eso ensancha la frontera de control y deja a riesgo, producto y seguridad operando con ritmos distintos. Eso se ve en pilotos que avanzan, pero no escalan, en parches que esperan, y en eventos donde una falla de red ya toca la operación central. Podría parecer solo un problema de herramientas. No lo es. Es un problema de gobierno y de cadencia operativa. En su portafolio, el foco está en rediseñar cómo se decide, cómo se mide el valor y cómo se cierra una brecha de riesgo antes de expandir la siguiente capacidad. Speed without decision rights becomes drift. This is an organizational problem. Strategic governance decides what gets priority, it decides who makes the call, and it decides which rules make change trustworthy. When the operating model lags, technology arrives before authority does. In AI, pilots move ahead, but trust thresholds and decision rights stay blurry. In cybersecurity, a vulnerability can stay exposed for 124 days. In connectivity, a network failure now threatens business continuity. And in digital transformation, value stalls when business redesign comes too late. First, leaders should reset decision rights. That means defining who approves, who reverses, and who escalates. No ambiguity. If a predictive model drives a recommendation, the business must know when a person steps in. If a breach appears, security must act without waiting for the next cycle. That keeps product, risk, and operations from moving at different speeds. Second, leaders should reset value measures. That means deciding which outcomes matter before expanding the next capability. Activity alone is not enough. Adoption alone is not enough. AI should also be measured by trust and user experience. Continuity should be measured by real resilience. Transformation should be measured by operational change, not by the number of initiatives. Third, leaders should reset accountability and cadence. That means reviewing priorities, closing gaps, and reassigning ownership every week. With discipline, when this domain fails, mission impact spreads across AI, cybersecurity, ubiquitous computing, and digital transformation. Speed turns into drift, trust erodes, and scale stalls. AI is already entering daily decisions. This week, a global experience showed AI providing context, predictions, and live support. In simple terms, capability reached the front line before governance did. Another case also made that clear. A predictive model was already shaping public conversation before launch. That shows AI has moved beyond analysis and into judgment. If this is ignored, approvals break first. The same output gets used differently across teams. Validation fragments. Responsibility spreads out. Decision latency rises. For your team, that shows up when a pilot works in the demo but never reaches stable operations. You might see this as a pure technology problem. It is not. Strategy loses clarity on which outcome matters. Organization loses ownership. Process loses review rhythm. Physical carries the usage load, but not the control logic. Digital speeds delivery without consistent limits. The counterintuitive lesson is this. Most teams optimize visible accuracy and inference speed. The real constraint is who has authority to accept, reject, or reverse that output. If the team does not decide who validates model use, trust fails before scale works. Stabilization comes from one mechanism: decision rights. Define who approves, who reverses, and who escalates. That cuts the drift between insight and action and keeps transformation moving. This week, the clearest signal was simple. A critical vulnerability stayed open for 124 days. At the same time, defensive teams kept working with fewer people. Another case raised public doubts about guardrails after an AI launch. That is not just technical noise, it is a governance failure. The gap sits between discovery, decision, and closure. The first thing that breaks is remediation. Patches wait for approval. Responsibilities get split across security, platform, and the business. The queue grows, and exposure stays alive. For your team, that looks like known issues returning to the same board again and again. You might see this as a pure technology problem. It is not. Strategically, risk tolerance becomes unclear. Organizationally, ownership gets lost. Operationally, closure loses rhythm. Physically, continuous operations add pressure. Digitally, the surface grows where mistakes can repeat. The counterintuitive lesson is this. Most teams optimize visible detection and alert resolution counts. The real constraint is speed from finding an issue to making an executable decision. If the team does not decide who can authorize closure and who escalates exceptions, trust breaks before recovery is complete. Stabilization comes from one mechanism: control objectives. That mechanism sets response times, exposure thresholds, and acceptance rules. In a short-staffed environment, with a window open for months, it cuts the drift between finding and closing. Without that framework, transformation loses momentum. Security becomes the bottleneck for change. A long exposure window, fragmented ownership, limited defensive capacity. That operating gap is already visible in connectivity. This week, a major event showed networks, data centers, and cloud. All of them had to support streaming, ticketing, security, and experience at once. In plain terms, infrastructure stopped being background technical work. It became business continuity. Another case reinforced the same pattern. Connectivity was designed for millions of people on the move. The signal is clear. Shared capacity now decides whether operations move or stall. If this is ignored, coordination breaks first. A small network delay becomes a queue of approvals. Then accountability splits across operations, security, and platform teams. After that, latency rises and the experience drops. For your team, that shows up when a site passes tests but fails live. You might see this as a pure technology problem. It is not. Strategic leaders lose clarity on what continuity to fund. Organizations lose ownership across domains. Processes lose escalation rhythm. Physical operations absorb the capacity pressure. Digital systems multiply every shared dependency. The counterintuitive lesson is simple. Most teams optimize visible speed and broad coverage. The real constraint is the common dependency tying different services together. If the team does not decide who governs connectivity continuity, recovery will fail. And it will fail before operations fully stabilize. Stabilization comes from one mechanism: operating cadence. That cadence sets review, escalation, and closure across domains. In a tightly coupled environment, it slows drift, and it keeps transformation moving. Across those pillars, the same trade-off keeps showing up. Velocity goes up, assurance goes down. That is operating model lag in plain terms. Capability arrives first, governance catches up later, and the organization pays for that gap. It shows up as exposure, confusion, and stalled adoption. The anti-pattern is capability without decision rights. Policy exists, but nobody owns the call. Controls sit outside the value stream. In one set of articles, AI guardrails were debated while teams still lacked clear limits. In another, a critical vulnerability stayed open for 124 days. In a third, telecom-scale connectivity showed how shared infrastructure can become the continuity dependency for everything else. The trade-off is simple. More speed without clearer authority creates more motion, not more progress. Autonomy helps teams move, but consistency keeps transformation from fragmenting into local fixes and repeated escalations. For your portfolio, this appears as pilots that scale slowly, remediation queues that keep growing, and continuity plans that treat network or AI decisions as somebody else's problem. That is where momentum drains away. The enterprise keeps adding capability, yet the decision path stays blurred, so teams wait, rework, and defer closure. Leaders reset the pace by aligning decision rights to the critical journeys where value and risk meet. Architects stabilize decision rights first. Given that pattern, 3 decisions become clear for leaders. For your team, the constraint is no longer capacity alone. It is who decides, how value is measured, and where risk gets cut. You can centralize decision rights for shared digital and AI capabilities, or you can let each domain set its own trust rules. Central authority speeds alignment, reduces rework, and keeps pilots from splintering. Local freedom creates exceptions, slows adoption, and blurs accountability. You can measure transformation by business outcomes and resilience, or you can keep measuring only delivery speed and volume. Outcome-based metrics keep momentum tied to value, trust, and continuity. Speed-only metrics hide drift, reward busy work, and let operating model lag grow. You can treat connectivity and recovery as strategic continuity dependencies, or you can keep funding them as background infrastructure. Continuity investment protects live service during load spikes and incidents. Background treatment turns one network issue into a broader operating delay. You can hear the pattern. Technology arrives first. Decision rights arrive later. That gap is where momentum leaks out. For you, the practical test is simple. If the enterprise cannot name the owner, the measure, and the fallback path, the transformation is not stable yet. Stepping back, the pattern is clear. Capability advances faster than the operating model. The result is movement, not progress. The architect sets the boundary. They clarify the decision. They align everyone on one path. We saw that in the 124-day patch delay. The tool was there, but the approval path was not. For your next steering meeting, ask who owns each decision. Ask how value is measured, and ask what fallback is in place. Next week, we will keep tracking where that lag appears again. Eso concluye la inmersión arquitectónica profunda de esta semana. Si disfrutaste este episodio, por favor danos 5 estrellas en tu plataforma favorita o en YouTube. Y si quieres ir más allá, únete a nuestra comunidad en Patreon y busca Embracing Digital. Hasta la próxima, soy el Dr. Darren. Sigue haciendo preguntas difíciles y sigue abrazando la revolución digital.